How's it, guys? We are live on the channel, the Rugby Guru here, and today we're going to do the alternative preview of the Springboks versus the British and Irish Lions. Yesterday we did the all SAFFAS preview. So today I've got Stephen, Master of None from Ireland, and I also got Morgan from the Mad Dragon channel. So how are you guys doing?
Doing very well.
Yeah, can't complain. Excited for tomorrow for the game. It's been building a while now, so yeah, it's good. It's good that it's finally here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been waiting for a very long time, and a little bit disappointed that I won't be able to attend those games live. I was basically on the brink of getting test tickets for that opening one and maybe for the last one as well, and then it just all fell through at the end. So very disappointed in that, at least. So yeah, today we're going to hear what you guys think of the Lions side for this weekend. But before we do that, how have you guys find the whole tour so far? Is it what you guys expected it to be or not?
Yeah, I would say it's been. I don't think it's been necessarily the greatest watching in terms of like if you're quite hardcore into rugby. I think a few of the games have been a little bit too walkovery, that it's. The excitement gets lost a little bit when teams are putting 40, 50 points on a team. For me, it's not quite the same thing. It's still fun to watch. It's still enjoyable to get in. But the games where they're a little bit tighter, there was the game they had. Was it the second light? Which one did they replay? And it ended up being they went about 20.
It
was the Sharks 20 all at like half time. That was a real nail biter. That's fun to watch. And it was nice to see the Japan game. I thought was really good to see that Japan is still, trying to maintain that top tier level rugby from them. And then, of course, the South Africa A game, which didn't go the best way for the Lions, but it was still a fantastic game of rugby to watch. I much more enjoyed something like that for me.
Yeah, like as you mentioned, Japan, as an Irish fan, we know how scary Japan are. We still have nightmares from the World Cup. Yeah, look, it's a strange one, as I'm sure from Gatland's perspective, because he just wants to kind of get through the opening few games with as little injuries as possible. But then you also want decent kind of competition in games to get yourselves up to a certain standard. And apart from that South Africa A game, really, we haven't seen that. I still think the South Africa A game was a blessing in disguise, because normally you don't experience that intensity and physicality until the first test, and then you might already be one test down going into the second one before you realize the level you have to get to. And that South Africa A game is sort of, I'm sure every training since has been like, this is what we need to be. This is where we need to be. And that's a fantastic insight. I know a loss is a loss, but still, they sort of know what to expect against the South Africa team now.
Yeah, so would you guys think that Gatland is too spoiled for choice at this stage? Because we did see that he mix and match that provincial test or games during the week quite a lot. Maybe it's confused him. Is it a good thing that he had such a big pool of players to choose from? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the team he picked from initially was a team not a lot of people expected. There were definitely some bigger choices in there that no one expected. I don't think a lot of people, or any of sort of my friendship circle anyway, no one saw Elliot Daly going, no one saw Bundy Aki going. People were surprised. People like James Ryan didn't get in. People like Sexton weren't getting in. So the team was picked specifically for a general reason, and we're slowly beginning to see a little bit more every week of what he wants from different sections. I think for me, the thing I would like to see is a slight more bit of consistency. I imagine the reason why the team has changed so much every week is just to not give away stuff for the actual tests. And I imagine once we get into the tests, we may well see that tests 1 and 2, depending on the outcome of the game, of course, the scoring wise, I think you might see the team not differ enormously. I think he wanted to test pretty much every combination he could across all the games that he pretty much was sort of going to win. The club level games just didn't seem to be that competitive for them. So it's worth testing the combinations and stuff. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more consistency in some more pairings. I did see a stat earlier today of the different pairings with where they're playing and how many people haven't played together. People like Elliot Daly and Chris Harris have only played once together. Dan Bigger and Ali Price have never actually started together. So this game already is like, what are they attempting to do? I wouldn't be surprised if as soon as that South Africa A game was over, they might have even had a lot of the partnerships already picked of who were going to go into this game, and just give them a full 10-day training period of, you guys are just going to train together again and again and again. And that way, when you get into this game, although you haven't necessarily played together, you'll have so much time working together, you should be able to translate it into the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we as fans sometimes forget that this is not like an all-star team, as in you pick the best players necessarily available. Gatland's picking a team that he thinks that can beat South Africa. So, you know, the selections, as you say, is Bundy Aki, which not a lot of people saw coming. Again, you're going up against the most physical team in the world, and Bundy's probably the most physical 12, you know, in the British and Irish kind of isles. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think from the warm-up games we see, I don't think Gatland wants to show anything that they want to do during a game. Like, we've seen them the amount of times they haven't gone for, say, a scrum. Like, I can't remember which game it was, but South Africa A, they were down to 13 men and they didn't go for the scrum penalty. And you're kind of thinking, in a test match, he's going to do that. Or they don't take 3 points when it's available. And again, like in the test, he's going to take the 3 points here. And I think that's a lot of it. He doesn't want Rassie to see or show his hand in any way or shape or form. And yeah, you make a good point there, Morgan. I couldn't believe how little of the partnerships have actually played together, if any have at all. It was almost shocking. But again, South Africa won't know what to expect in a way because they haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, that's true. So it's like Albert Tritter says here, probably the two best coaches in the world in Gatland and Rassie facing each other. There will be surprises from both, and I'm just not sure which kind of surprises we will get. But because the Lions have not shown what they can do so far, really, what do you guys think is up for surprise in this Lions side?
I think it'll be a lot more to do with the back play, I think, from the Lions' perspective. I think we've seen either, if this is a technical maneuver, I think it's the most brilliant tactics ever. The idea that the Lions maul from the 5-meter drive is sucked. It has been awful. They haven't been able to get over the line, even against the clubs they were beating 40, 50 points. They really struggled to convert that. And if that's a tactic to show we can't do this, and then they're going to use that in the test, that's brilliant. I think it's more likely they're struggling to get that 5-meter maul to work perfectly. I would be surprised to see them really trying to push that. I think the interplay between the backs will be much more likely to come through. That's why some of the picks, people like Duhan van der Merwe and Anthony Watson on either wing, you know, again, came through. You think that's a couple of interesting choices there. Maybe not what a lot of people thought. I think the interplay between the backs and the way the backs are going to be used is going to be switched up a lot for this game. I think that's where the surprise comes from the Lions' perspective. The South Africa team, I can't talk too much about how in-depth the South Africa team tactics go, but the South Africa tactics just seem to be all-out aggression and momentum. If anything, that's all I see from them. There isn't even a fantastic amount of different sort of set plays they're going with. They're just going, we're going forwards. It's your job to stop us. And if you can't handle it, they sort of bowl you over. So it's going to be interesting to see what the South Africa team brings to mix that up a little bit for me.
Yeah, the surprises for me, I can see. I was surprised at how attacking Gatland kind of went from his selections. Like, as you said, looking at the selections, like, Van der Merwe, Elliot Daly, Watson, even the likes of Jack Conan and Cowan Dickey and Ali Price. That sounds to me like he's going to try and actually, attack South Africa out wide in the channels. And that's the kind of the conundrum when you face South Africa. Do you try and play them at their own game, which is probably a bad idea because they're the best at what they do, which is rip your face off and like run over you. So maybe you should try something maybe different, going kind of, around, try and go around them a bit more. And the likes of those selections, I don't think a lot of us saw some of them coming, which is fantastic for us because I don't think if you try and beat South Africa at their own game, which is physicality, I think you're going to lose 99 times out of 100 because that's what South Africa do the best in the world. So that was, my surprise was I didn't expect that sort of attacking-minded team to be named.
Yeah. So if we quickly go through this lineup for this Lions side, we've got Stuart Hogg at fullback, Anthony Watson on the right wing, Elliot Daly coming in at 13, Henshaw at 12, Van der Merwe at 11, Dan Bigger at 10, Ali Price at 9, Jack Conan at 8, Tom Curry, Courtney Laws, Alun Wyn Jones, Maro Itoje at furlong, Cowan Dickey, and Wyn Jones. Do you guys think this is the sort of lineup that can push South Africa to the very end and beat us on Saturday?
I think this is a a solid sort of first half team. I really struggled to see what the technique was going to go for. For me, there was an awful lot of height picked in this team, which is trying to scream to me, Conan, Curry, Laws, Alun Wyn Jones, Itoje, they're all big involved. They can all get involved in the lineouts. It sounds to me like the lineouts are going to be a massive area they want to play with. They know how strong the South African lineout is. I think for me, trying to stop South African lineouts is maybe going to be their main target. I do struggle to see where the interplay is going to come from. I don't know whether they'll try and use Daly as a sort of second distributor, almost in like a Farrell role in that center position, and try and have Bigger on one side and Daly on the other, because Henshaw playing 12 or 13, you can pick either line. I think it's a team that'll be able to hold out. To me, this is a team, though, that I think they've picked an awful lot of their top tier players in the starting team. And I think it would go for a good half. And it's when it gets to that sort of 60 minutes, as soon as you start taking a couple of those people off, whether people that are going to replace them coming on, where they're going to be able to hold out for the full 80 is where I think the cracks may begin to show. And again, the big question mark for me is that Duhan van der Merwe wing against Colby. If he can hold that together, he might do really well, and it might work. It might be a brilliant move, but that wing for me could be the big question mark for me in that first half.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like the mix he's gone with of kind of power, and also you got great players in there who are have great hands, especially in that forward pack. Cowan, Dickey, and Furlong are your modern day kind of front row where they'll get around the park, and Wyn Jones as well, and they can also pop passes out the back. Laws, obviously, then technically a lot of people wouldn't say he is that kind of player, but he also brings that incredible physicality in that pack. And as Morgan said, another option sort of in the line out, if you need be. Price and Bigger, they're going to be an attacking minded kind of 9-10 partnership. Bigger also has that capability of kind of putting the ball into certain areas and kind of controlling the game that way. Van der Merwe is definitely the biggest question mark, as you said, Morgan. Like defensively, we all know that's not his forte, but he's also a big man who's incredibly pacey and incredibly attacking with the ball in his hands. So Colby will be licking his lips, I think, looking at that. And look, there's not many people in the world, if any, that can stop Colby on his day. So maybe it's a sense of like, we're not going to necessarily stop him, but if we can contain him a little bit, that's kind of all we can hope for. And then look at the bench, you've got some great, like Tygburn, obviously from an Irish perspective, I think we all kind of wanted him to start. But again, another man who can cover two spots, can come on, has great pair of hands on him as well, so can distribute. It's a nice blend. I can see why he's kind of gone with that mixture.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to have a question for Morgan now as a Welsh supporter. Louis Zammit, Josh Adams. Would you have started any one of those two ahead of Watson and Van der Merwe?
Yeah, I think for me, I would have had Josh Adams on specifically on the left wing, not necessarily to replace Duhan van der Merwe, but Josh Adams has been. He's had a really good Six Nations. For me, I didn't have the best sort of Autumn Nations Cup, if you throw your mind back all the way back to them. And I think he struggled there. The Six Nations, he really sort of bounced back and got his game together. The thing I always used to say negatively about Josh Adams for me was the defensive side. He's so aggressive as an attacker. It's awesome. He loves physicality, but the defensive side for him was never quite there. And in the last sort of year, he's really solidified that game. And I would actually put good money on Josh Adams having the right sort of awareness in the game just to be able to shut down Colby. And that's probably where I would have gone for. I would have had Josh Adams on that left wing. There was talk about whether he had he'd taken a little knock in his last game, and also whether his mind was in the right place after just having his child when he played in that Stormers game. He was sort of saying he wasn't quite in the game in his own head. So, there's a couple of reasons maybe why he wasn't picked. I personally, if you in a perfect world, could he have been in? I would have liked to have seen Josh Adams on that left wing. I've never seen Duhan van der Merwe play the right wing, and I'm not sure how confident he would be in switching. So I probably would have done that as an exact replacement. I don't think Watson is a super bad choice. He can play wing, can play fullback if you need him to. He's had a good Six Nations. He's probably one of the few England players that I actually sort of praised in that Six Nations. He actually seemed to step up. The step on the inside seems to be good. Zammit's defense has been relatively decent. There are a couple of tackles that he does seem to fall off a little bit. I think the thing for me with Zammit would be he has great pace and he could definitely be a bit of a game-winning player. All he needs is the room to make the run down. But Watson, I think, has a slightly better awareness doing both wing and fullback. I think players like Mpimpi that he'll be going up against, who know when to chip over the top, know when to take the step, know when to do the inside pass. I think Watson would actually have better game awareness of being able to shut down that left wing. For me, I think I probably would have gone for a Josh Adams and maybe an Anthony Watson on that wing. And then I would have maybe had either Duhan van der Merwe or Zammit on the bench. And they could have come on in that, maybe not even 60 minutes, it's 50 minutes, just when people are tired and you just bring on an electric pace. And as soon as that room opens up, we saw it in the Wales-Scotland game in the Six Nations. Zammit doesn't need anything to turn it into a try. He's done it in this tournament as well. So yeah, for me, I would have put Josh Adams in there, but I might have stuck with Watson for this game particularly.
Oh, that's quite interesting. We had 303 asking, is Adams injured? He's not injured at the moment. He's just not been selected for this one. So that came as a big surprise.
If only he'd scored more tries in the warm-up games. One more try, maybe.
If only double figures, if only he was good enough to get double figures tries, whatever.
Step it up, Adam. Step it up.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Stephen, for you as an Irish fan, were you surprised to see Jack Conan starting at 8? And would you maybe have had Tadhg Beirne start in the place of Laws, maybe?
Yeah, the Jack Conan story has been fun. Like, what a 6 months this guy's had. Like, this guy, didn't play for Ireland in so long. Like, Leinster, he wasn't the first choice aid. Caelan Doris was ahead of him in the selection, and Caelan Doris goes down with sort of a head injury, he's out for a few months, and then Jack Conan sort of just steps up and has risen ever since. Like, he's a fantastic player. I think, and Morgan, you can vouch for this, I think one of the few players that before the Lions even started, a lot of the players you would have had nailed on for a starter jersey would have been Toby Faletau. For several reasons. He's fantastic, number 8, and obviously Gatland obviously is a massive fan of him. And Jack Conan has sort of obviously showed enough to take his place. So it's fantastic in that sense. He's a dynamic number 8. He's not your typical, he's not your Billy Vinipolas who's just going to smash you down the middle all the time. He's very comfortable out in the wing. We've seen that in the Six Nations. He's very comfortable with the ball in hand. He is your modern kind of dynamic number 8, which gives you a bit more of a different look than, say, other 8s, which is maybe why Gatland has gone for him. But as I said, 6 months ago, Jack Conan wouldn't have even thought of a Lions tour. Now he's starting the first test, which is just incredible. Tadhg Beirne is a fantastic player. And again, his story is fantastic too. Him and Wyn Jones were playing lower league in Wales only a couple of years ago. And now both kind of on a Lions kind of test team. Tadhg Beirne, I think sometimes his versatility can almost go against him. The fact that he's so good at both positions, he's almost a fantastic bench player. I think as well, his size and his physicality gets thrown at him a lot. Look, I've seen Tadhg Beirne in games. He never looks not physical enough to me or not big enough to me, but it seems to get thrown against him. And again, you're going up against the most physical team in the world in South Africa, so maybe that's an issue. But I think the fact that he can cover both positions so well, he's almost ideally suited on a bench to that. If God forbid something happens to Alun Wyn Jones in the first few minutes, or Courtney Laws at the end of the game, he's the ideal man to bring on, and he's so versatile. So I think maybe that's why he's gone against him. Look, there's no shame in being on the bench of a Lions team. Like, look at the list of players that didn't even make the 23. It's a who's who of Six Nations rugby, and that's that's the predicament that Gatland had.
Yeah, that's the thing. Staying with you, Stephen, from an Irish perspective, who were your main omissions from the overall Lions squad? The likes of Sexton, Ringrose, Stockdale, maybe, even the likes of the lock. What's his name?
James Ryan.
So what's your opinion on those? Would you maybe have had some of them in the side for others, or what's your opinion?
I haven't been the biggest Sexton fan for the last year or two. I think maybe Ireland should have used it as a time to sort of bring someone new in as he's come to his career. Look, Sexton's been fantastic, and he's been top 2 Ireland number 10s of all time. I don't think it was that big of an omission at all. I don't think any of the Irish guys you've mentioned were massive omissions. James Ryan obviously came onto the scene 2 or 3 years ago. Was incredible. But the last year and a half, he just hasn't gotten to that level. And we've seen it there in the summer series. Just wasn't at the level that we know he was when he came onto the scene first. And that's fine. He's 23, 24. He's got the world ahead of him. It's not a player's dip in form. But I think you've seen now that was the correct selection. And look at Adam Beard, who was brought in, and people again were in uproar about James Ryan not being selected. And Adam Beard's been fantastic, and a lot of people had him down to start the first test. So, no, I don't think omissions Sexton isn't that player that he used to be. I think the 3 fly halves that went ahead of him were better than him. The Marcus Smith call up that again, people were like, why did Sexton not get that call? You were trying to replace Finn Russell. You're not going to bring Sexton in to replace Finn Russell. If you do, that's not going to work. They're not like for like. Marcus Smith is that type of player. So again, I see that. Ringrose is a fantastic rugby player, but the last year, which is what these line tests are sort of picked on, he just wasn't at that level as other players were. And again, if I'm trying to beat South Africa, is Ringrose a 13 that I want over the likes of a Henshaw or a Chris Harris or an Elliot Daly, as he's now picked as well? Probably not. So look, at people get offended, and Gatlin apparently hates Ireland, which is just incredible, as we've picked 7 or 8 players in the squad. So yeah, it's laughable at that times. But no, I don't. No crazy omissions in my opinion, anyway, from the Irish side.
Yeah, and from your side, Morgan, who's the Welsh players you would have thought? I, for one, would have thought Jonathan Davis would have made the side initially, and he got left out. So, is there any other guys that you would have picked for the Welsh from a Welsh perspective?
Well, the first omission for me was Navidi. I really thought Navidi was going to get in on that initial pick. I thought he's playing very good rugby at the minute, and but I think it was the style. The style of Navidi he is not your running, 6 or 7. He can play. He has played 8, but not fluently. But he's not your Tom Curry. He's not going to have the ball in his hand and be sprinting all the way down the field. He's the fully defensive brick wall. He will tackle everyone. He will get turnovers. He will win in terms of actually clearing out a ruck if he needs to. He's that sort of player. So I was really ashamed for him that he didn't get to be picked initially. And then, of course, Tipperick going out meant that he sort of got his place in. So that was nice for me. The Jonathan Davis thing, I think, is very similar to what Stephen said about Ringrose. I think people look at Jonathan Davis an awful lot about his sort of talents he had about 3 or 4 years ago. I've said it for the last year, 18 months, that I just don't think Jonathan Davis is at that form anymore, unfortunately. The style of play that he does, the way he was sort of used in the Wales team, didn't really probably get to display his own sort of skills and talents that he has. We even saw it going to the July internationals. He was given the captaincy. I thought that was a weird choice again as a captaincy. He's not the most talkative to referees. He didn't get to do it. Pivac was putting him on at 12 rather than 13, where we normally see him in the outside centre. He's playing out of position, and I just don't think he's quite there. And like Stephen said, you've got to pick players that are on form, and if he's not on form, you don't really get in. Adam Beard was the one that a lot of people were like really surprised about. And the big call was whether, James Ryan should have got in on that. And for me, I assumed the situation for that would be more the penalty based thing. Adam Beard really doesn't give away an awful lot of penalties, gets the job done. And he's also about 6'8", which helps him in terms of like the lock position, which is fine. It was James Ryan is a much more aggressive lock. And we do, the fantasy groups and stuff that we do on my channel and stuff. And every week you see a lock could score, 8 or 9 points, and James Ryan scores 15, but then gets minus 10 points because of penalties given away in the game. He just always seems to just want to push that a little bit too much. And I think going against a team like South Africa, as we saw in the South Africa A game, if you give them a penalty, they will just take 3. They don't mess about with it. They'll just chip away at you, and as soon as you give 4 or 5 away, you're 15 points down, and it becomes an impossible mountain to climb. Someone like Adam Beard will get in and just sort of do the job. So I don't think there's been any terrible omissions. I mean, talking about the July internationals with my friends, I didn't really realize till I got to sit down and see the Wales-Argentina game, just how many of the first string Welsh players are actually out with the Lions. It was like almost like an entirely second team playing Argentina. So I don't think there's any crazy omissions. The main one, of course, would be that the Jonathan Davis scenario. And I personally probably would have gone for Thomas Williams over Gareth Davis, just in terms of scrum half ability. A lot of people love Gareth Davis, but their two style plays are different. Again, he wants a running 9. If he's got the ability, that's much more what Gareth Davis looks for in terms of the show and go and the interception tries, probably more than Thomas Williams. But I would probably say Thomas Williams I'd rate slightly higher in the Welsh regions in terms of scrum half ability. But yeah, no massive omissions for me. The Welsh is pretty well supported in the Lions team, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, guys. Before, okay. Sorry, yeah, was there much talk in Wales about when Russell went down, maybe Callum Sheedy filling that Marcus Smith role?
No, I hadn't heard a lot of people talk about it. I was actually surprised Sheedy wasn't looked at as almost to be a tournament bench fly half. We thought most of the standard ones we get, you assume Bigger, Farrell, Finn Russell, or Sexton was the sort of in and out. I thought they'd go with Sexton because of Gatland's gone with him before and stuff like that. I thought that would be the route they would sort of go down. They went with Finn Russell. As soon as you see Finn Russell get onto that, you think, right, they're playing much more aggressive. They don't want a standard 10. They want a 10 that's going to play. Callum Sheedy for me in Wales has been awesome in terms of being the impact bench fly half. And I almost thought he would be brought onto the tour as a pure purpose of being, you will be my fly half on the bench. So when Marcus Smith got called up, unfortunately, I haven't seen the sort of shining star of what Marcus Smith has to offer. I didn't get to see him in some of the Premiership games that everyone's talking about him with. I completely have missed that. So I don't know what he did. I saw him play in the games against in the sort of July internationals for the England team. And I thought he's a perfectly good 10. He obviously likes to run with the ball, and his kicking percentage is great. We saw him have a good game in the Stormers game, but I'm still yet to see what that extra little spark is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if test 2, test 3, we maybe get to see Marcus Smith get in there, maybe on the bench even. Yeah. And if he can make that real impact, I mean, what a great little increase that lad's had. He went from being club level to international level to Lions in about 12 months. What an incredible rise through for him.
Yeah. Right. So I've got a comment here from Eric Davison saying, the Lions know that they can't break the Boks backline without extra men. So the reason why I brought this up, and going back to this backline of the Lions, the surprise for me and for a lot of South African YouTubers and viewers were the inclusion of Price over Conor Murray. Do you guys think that the Lions will play a more attacking brand of game with Ali Price there, who's been in form, and we've seen clean out the ball a lot quicker? Do you guys think this backline got what it takes to break the South African defence on the weekend?
Yeah, to me, this whole team is attacking. Everything about it says we want the ball in hand and going. I think the South Africa A game showed if you kick it to South Africa, they'll score points. Kicking almost doesn't really do a lot. They'll probably use some crossfield kick for penalties, and they have the opportunity for the try. But they really probably don't want to be kicking too much. Conor Murray, I actually think, has been overshadowed by Ali Price in terms of the box kicking in this Lions tournament. I actually think he's been better. I think he had a better Six Nations than Ali Price, but I think Ali Price has outshone him for the Lions in particular. I really like Ali Price. I think he was the right choice there. I think him and Bigger will work well together. It is aggressive. They're going to be fast ball and try and getting it out. Hopefully the back line will be able to work well together. Again, like we said earlier on, it's the pairings thing for me, whether they can do. I would imagine all of this team is about going forwards. Watson's not big on the boot, not big on the up and under. He loves just to run with the ball in hand. Stuart Hogg's the counter runner. Elliot Daly's been pretty good in terms of distributing, but also trying to find the gaps himself. The offloading that we've seen so much from the Lions through the tournament already, they obviously look for the offloads as much as they can. Robbie Henshaw is awesome in that Ireland shirt in terms of finding holes in the gaps. And then Duhan van der Merwe's just a steamroller if he has the ball in his hand. This entire thing for me says that this team wants the ball in hand, and we're gonna run forward. So for me, I think it's a very good attacking backline. It'll just be whether they actually work together more than anything to actually sort of link them all together.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the back row here, South Africa. It just scares the crap out of me. That entire pack does. Yeah, I think he's gone with Price. Look, Murray is very good at what he does, but he's also very predictable at this stage of his career, to a fault, nearly, I think, at some points. I think South Africa would have expected him to start, and I think they would have known what he's going to do. I think maybe Gatland has, I fully agree, Price has been better this tour so far. Totally different 9 will really ramp up the pace, which obviously they want to do. And yeah, I think will work well with Bigger. I don't see why that partnership wouldn't work. The back row itself, I think it's a nice blend. Like Curry is fantastic, a real jackal threat, and again, good around the pitch. Laws is a massive beast of a man, and Jack Conan, as I already said, is a great dynamic 8. So you have a lot of options of what you can do, and I think, look, you're going up against arguably the best back row in the world. Peter Steph Dutoy is just incredible, and Khaleesi, he's tried to pull a fast one there with Khaleesi not starting, and then of course he's first name on the sheet. So yeah, look, it's going to be a really tough challenge, but if anyone's going to do it, it could be that back row and that Ali Price and Bigger.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go with a ball carrier line breaker with the likes like Bundiaki maybe at the 12, because Dialendi is going to be that guy who's going to just run at the line the whole day long. We know Pollard can do that same kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. Henshaw, for me, I don't know. Have he always played inside center, or were he usually an outside center before? Because I don't know if he's the one that's going to be able to bash that ball up through the middle every single time. That's where the Lions might be missing a guy like Manu Tuolangi, who has not been, or he was available, but not match fit to go on this tour. So, do you guys think Henshaw will be able to stand in that role as well?
Yeah, I mean Henshaw is still a massive guy. It's bizarre when you think of, my brain doesn't immediately jump. He is a really tall lad. I remember watching one of the Island games. They said he was about 6'4", 6'5" or something. He's still a big man. It's just not his style. And I actually quite like what Gatland did with Aki. When you watch the Ireland team, no offense, Stephen, but the Aki route is incredibly predictable in Andy Farrell's Ireland team. The first receiver off the ruck, he's just going to go in a straight line forwards, and all you need to do is have the right man there to tackle him, and it really shuts him down. I really like what Gatland has done with Aki in terms of actually trying to get him to run. He sort of runs between now. He tries to find where the scrum half, fly half is, and almost hits the middle of them. And you commit two of the main sort of vocal players in there to one tackle at once, and you begin to open the line. Robbie Henshaw already sort of does that. It's about finding the gaps. I think the way this team is set up to be so aggressive in attacking, I actually think they don't want any players to be hitting hard lines in the middle, because you have people like Steph du Toit who is just going to hit you much harder the other way. There's no point sort of running directly at him. You won't make any ground. I think this team for me is going to be more based around the handling and spreading it wide. All it'll take is have an Elliot Daly or a Henshaw find a single gap, and the offload game will come into its own. I think they're actually going to try and avoid the contact as much as possible. So I think the omission of a hardline carrier going through won't be missed too much. And I imagine if they need someone to do that, that's where you bring in someone like Tom Curry or Hamish Watson or Conan, who just love doing that exact thing. They'll almost, and we sort of see it with how Warren Gatland even used to do with Wales, the use of Falatawa on the far wing. And sometimes they used to bring number 8 slightly more in towards the centre position. We've seen it in this Lions tour. Falatawa out on the wing, Conan spreading wide, Simmons does it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you see in a couple of mauls, they just let a couple of rucks, they let the sort of forward 5 deal with the ruck. And then you have a Jack Conan look like he's going to run a hard line. You make someone like Steph du Toit commit to the tackle, and then out the back, you're playing out to Elliot Daly and you let the backs run. You almost engage big lads with big lads, and you let the tactics speak for themselves at the backs for me.
Yeah, look, as a Connacht fan, I would love to have seen Bundy. I totally agree, Morgan. Look, the 12s in modern day rugby, that seems to be all they do is they're a battering ram, which is a shame. And it's the same with Dialendi and Bundy. I think they're criminally underused in that role. I think Munster with Dialendi, I don't feel like the one time they used him correctly, I think, was against Toulouse, when they sort of realized they had to play some sort of expansive rugby, and it was the best. They lost narrowly in the end, but it was the best game that Munster played all year. And if you ever watch Bundy with Connacht as well, they use him in a more of that expansive role, and they're more than capable of doing it. It's just when they seem to get to this international level, they just seem to be used as this battering ram, and then they get labelled as that, and it's unfortunate. But I think to agree with Morgan, if you're going to try and match South Africa with physicality, those lads would have been selected, and they're not. So I can't imagine they're going to try and do that. They're going to try and be more expansive. Like Elliot Daly is a very creative player, especially that 13 role. That's why he's picked. He's not being picked to run down the throat of someone. Like, it's not going to work very well if he is. And if Gatland does that, then maybe he shouldn't be in the job. It's a terrible coaching decision. Henshaw is a fantastic rugby player. Where you play him at 12, obviously he has done that in the past. I think back in the Connacht days, he definitely played a bit of 12. And then with Leinster, I think he's also played a bit of fullback as well. He can play several roles, and I think he's more than capable of doing any of those roles at a high level. And defensively, obviously, he gives you so much as well. I don't think he very rarely misses tackles. I hope I didn't jinx him now, but he very rarely misses tackles. So, yeah.
No, that's true. Right, so Cup ask how fragile or not with Alun Wyn Jones. What are you guys' opinion on Alun Wyn Jones' miracle comeback from a dislocated shoulder? Will he be ready?
He will be ready. It's not quite the same animal. I mean, I remember. I don't even remember. I almost feel it might have even been an Ireland game. I remember watching a number of years ago. I think he almost did a similar injury. I think he dislocated his shoulder in that one as well, and he literally wrapped his arm in his shirt, and he played with one hand for the last 10 minutes in the defensive set. He's just a different breed of human. I think he just is. He just gets on with it and knows what he has to do. We saw it in that Stormers game. He immediately, from minute one he came on, he led with the left shoulder into every single tackle, testing it, putting it against big lads. You can only do sort of 60, 80% at training. Got in there, full contact, got involved with the game and, walked off the pitch looking relatively happy with himself. He's got enough experience. I believe, is he the most capped international ever? I believe he takes that record now.
Yeah.
He's got the experience to get on the pitch. He knows what he's capable of. He knows what he can do. Even if he picks up a little hit, I think that would actually be the most negative thing is if he picks up a knock. He's really difficult to get off the field. I think one of the big things for me would be if he takes a knock early in that first half, for him to have the self-awareness to say, I need to be removed now. Bring on Ty Burn or someone in my place. That'll be fine. I'll rest up and I can be back in for test 2. The thing I wouldn't want to see is him play the first half, take a massive hit from, someone like Etzebeth or someone straight into that left shoulder, feels it twinge, feels it go a little bit wrong. And rather than come off, is too determined to carry on the game and see it out. You almost become a hindrance to the team because you're weakened. And then also you do long-term damage. I thought it was career ending when he did that in Japan. I thought this is going to be a number of months coming through. Who's going to show off in this Lions team? Is he going to bounce back from this to get back into the Wales team where they have filled that role with someone else thinking he won't be back in time? The fact he's come back in 3 weeks or something is genuinely astonishing. So I think he'll be fine. I can't see him playing the full 80. I just think out of protection more than anything, whether they're winning or losing, I think he'll get to that 50, 60 minute mark. And I think it's just time to take him off. And you keep him as that sort of that talisman that they're trying to go with him with the main captain, the Lions captain. He's come back. He's taken back over from Conor Murray now. He'll be on the field. And I think I'd try and just make sure he could get in for test 2 if available. So I think he'll be fine, but might be his own Saldy Fords on if he tries to stay on the pitch for too long for me.
Yeah, I think if he wasn't 100%, they wouldn't have started. They wouldn't have brought him back. Like, look, if he gets a knock early on and he gets injured, re-injures it again, there's going to be a lot of questions asked of Gatland. Like, why was he brought back in? Why was he brought in ahead of other lads when he wasn't fully fit? And rightly so. And we know Gatland isn't one for storybook endings. Like back to was it 2013 tour with O'Driscoll or 2009? I can't remember which one it was, but do you know what I mean? He doesn't care about those things. So he wouldn't have brought Alun Wyn Jones back if he doesn't think and didn't get the all clear from the medical staff. South Africa are going to go after it, and rightly so. We all know how physical they are, so they're going to go straight after him. So we will know early on if it is okay or not. It can go both ways. If South Africa see that it's weak, they'll get a kick from that, and vice versa. If the Lions can see that Alun Wyn Jones is still going after taking a few knocks, that's going to be a big motivation boost for them as well. So I can see why they've done it. And as Morgan said, no one should be playing 80 minutes really in these games. Well, no one obviously have to, but in some games your bench is weaker. This is a Lions team. You're not really that much weaker on the bench than you are in your starting team. So get the subs on and let's keep everyone fresh and like we know with South Africa how well they use their bench. The Lions need to do the same with them. But yeah, I think he's 100% fit. I don't see him being there if he wasn't.
Yeah, no, that's true. Eric Davison also asks, I can't see Bigger using the kick pass often. Can I also ask, will the Lions squeeze or quick channel one ball? What do you guys think?
Yeah, the kicking I think will be kept to a minimum in this game. It wasn't the same. I wouldn't even be surprised if Farrell in that first game was told, look for some chip over the tops, look for some crossfield kicks, just to make South Africa very aware that they need to defend it, and then they won't do any of it. I think the time you'd see actual sort of crossfield kicks or kick passing coming in is when Dan Biggar plays with more comfortable players. When you see Josh Adams on that left wing is when that will become an actual option. I don't have Duhan van der Merwe down as a high ball guy, really. I think he would need a lot of time and a lot of room to catch that ball. So I don't see the kicking side of things being the most useful. Even box kicks, I think Ali Price might, do a couple just to move up the pitch. But from what we saw of that South Africa A game, they really do have that backfield covered quite well. And Faf de Klerk is so good at box kicking himself. If you don't want to get into the kicking tennis game, because they seem to have, I would say, a slightly higher standard in terms of kicking, in terms of the position where they land the ball from box kicks and stuff. So I can't see them wanting to get into it too much. And I don't really see the kick pass happening too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. The less you kick to them, the better. South Africa want that. Keep them honest by all means. Keep them honest occasionally. Van der Merwe on a high ball, I agree in a sense, but he is so big and physical. He doesn't necessarily even have to catch it. Just pat it. We've seen so many times when a breaking ball can go the right way. And using his size, especially if it comes up against someone smaller than him, it might be worth a try. It only has to work once for it to be successful. You know what I mean? If you try it a few times, so it's a good option to have for a man of his size, definitely.
Yeah. So next one, Alun Wyn Jones says Biggar defensively not good. Bokke to target that area. Price kicking game poor. Any opinions on that, guys?
That guy's on the offensive, isn't he? Huh? He's not holding any punches. especially for poor Biggar there, Morgan. You got to defend your boy.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised by that. I actually think Biggar's a relatively physical defensive 10 for me. I think there's a lot of 10s that fall off the, I don't know, would sort of immediately jump to mind. I don't think people like George Ford are necessarily the best in terms of defensive sets. I think Dan Biggar almost sometimes likes to be too committed to tackles. He loves to, for some reason, stand in a channel where a number 8's going to run. I have no idea why. He just seems to love being there. I think he has a relatively decent tackle. I think I would disagree with that one. Price kicking game. I think I would have said Conor Murray before coming into this tournament has had a better kicking game than Price. For me, I think Price's kicking success comes from he needs good coverage. Basically, he needs someone good on pillars in terms of in a ruck. He will get charged down. He doesn't have the best sort of style for doing box kicks. He will get a charge down, so you need someone covering him. But as long as he's covered, I actually think the from what we've seen in this Lions team so far is that the accuracy pinpoint has been actually quite good from Price. The thing I would say more from him is he's not the best at necessarily finding touch from the box kicks, and when he does find touch, it's not a great distance. I would say the accuracy kicking from him is relatively good. I wouldn't be surprised if they target Dan Biggar. Most people seem to target Dan Biggar. And he likes to mouth off a little bit. So, there's every chance if you hit him hard enough, he might say the wrong thing to the ref and give away a penalty for being too mouthy. I don't know. Maybe biased. I don't know. I disagree with every point of it, but I don't know. Not me.
Yeah, Price only gets blocked down by Maro Itoje, and he's on his own team, so it should be fine, right? That we're covered in that sense. I agree with Biggar. Biggar's more than capable, I think, in defence. As you said, nearly too much. He will nearly put himself in harm's way to make a tackle when he shouldn't. But I'm not worried as a Lions fan that Biggar's going to get run over. Farrell maybe a bit more of a bigger man, maybe in person. But again, I wouldn't have him down as Biggar's massive weaknesses as defending. I don't think Price is being selected on his kicking ability, though, right? He's been selected by his pace of play and what he can do. If you're going to go pure kicking, maybe Murray would be the selection. But I think the fact that he's gone with Price is that that's what he's not really want. He wants a bit more of a quick ball kind of function. So I think that's why Price has been selected. But Marlon, you need to calm down, Marlon. Okay, I know you're obviously a big South African fan. Okay, so we know who you're picking to win, Marlon. I think is pretty obvious. But no, yeah, I think that's fair.
No, I kind of disagree. I think Biggar has always been good at defense, and I think Price will not be selected for the kicking game. I think that's why Conor Murray is going to come on to the second half. And I'm a little bit worried, like 11J said definitely not confident with South Africa if Faf is replaced. I don't think Herschel Jantjies will do well against Conor Murray if they get on. What do you guys think? What is the weakness in the South African lineup for today? I don't see too much weakness in the forwards. I know who my weak weak spots are, but it would be quite nice to hear it from you guys' perspective as well.
Yeah, the South African team is I to me this is a solid 15. I imagine you'd want Vermeulen maybe in there as well. I think this is enough to do any job. You know, I mean, I don't know what the percentage of people that were involved in the World Cup is compared to this 23 is, but it's a lot. You know, they've all been at the highest level of game. You'd be expecting them to be, you know, good enough to be able to handle most things. We saw a lot of this team already playing in that first Lions game. They all did a good job. There's no desperate weaknesses. The thing that for me would be, you almost want to take the upper hand with a team like South Africa. It's in similar ways to, if you throw back to the World Cup, the way England dealt with New Zealand was just take the game to them, you know, 100%. They're teams that are in New Zealand and South Africa are both teams used to being on top all the time. So as soon as they're not on top, is for me where the cracks begin to show. We even saw a little bit in the Georgia game. You know, if a Springbok scrum isn't working because the Georgians running you over, you know, heads begin to scratch, and you know that's their strength. If you can take the strengths and turn it against them, we did see it in the first Lions game. The Lions got that penalty on their own 5 meters in a scrum, and heads, you know, left the scrum all down, and they, you know, I think disparaging the team is probably the best way to go. The weakness in the team as a whole is going to be this bench, and once they make those shifts. I think, unfortunately, I don't think, you know, the forward's not going to be necessarily too much worse. But I think the late stage for South Africa, as you sort of saw in that first game as well, from 60 minutes onwards, they're not going to offer a lot. I think that South African team, for me, wants to be in the lead by the 60-minute marker. And then it will be a disciplinary game of holding it out to the victory. I think if Lions are ahead about the 60, 65-minute marker, South Africa are just going to have to throw caution to the wind and just start throwing everything, because I don't think it's quite the same as necessarily that some of the Lions players are going to be replaced with some better players. I think the South African team is going to be replaced by potentially weaker players, and the late game will be what sort of decides this one for me.
I think the obvious name obviously is Vermeulen. I'm missing. I think he would start probably at the 8 role instead of Smith if he was fit. Speaking to yourself, Johan, as well. So it seems to be both props on the bench would probably be stronger than the props starting. But I saw O'Gara talking about this as well, and he was saying a lot of teams like to finish with their best sort of players towards the end, which is what Rassie's thinking. You know, we've heard of the infamous bomb squad and you know, the infamous 6-2 split, which he hasn't gone with, which we all kind of were surprised by. But yeah, I think Morgan made a fantastic point. I think South Africa are looking to be up in this game come 60 minutes, and then it's a case of maybe just holding on a little bit, which could be obviously ridiculous. It depends on how good. You're asking me to find weaknesses in the World Cup champions here, which is not exactly the easiest thing to do. But yeah, I think the Lions will be looking at that now, having seen the team being like, if we're in this game with 20 minutes to go, that's exactly what we want. So it will be interesting come that 60-minute mark, depending on who's ahead, how they'll view the remaining 20 minutes. And the first half an hour, we know South Africa will just bludgeon them with physicality, and then they like to play a bit of rugby, and they like to then kind of, once they've nearly beaten you physically and mentally, they'll start to really then implement their game plan. But yeah, not a whole pile of weaknesses in that team, realistically, is there?
No, not really, because I'm not so much concerned with the starting props for this one. We all know Trevor Nyakane struggled against Wyn Jones in that SAA game, but I'm sure that the moment we start struggling in the scrums, we are going to bring on Kitshoff and Malherbe, and we do have another ball fetcher in Marks when he does come on. We all know the quality of the Jager, but my problem starts with that last 4, basically. Elkstad, Herschel Jantjies, Elton Jantjies, and Damian Willemse. So first of all, Herschel Jantjies hasn't been playing really great rugby this whole season. He's not the Herschel Jantjies of 2019. So whether he will be able to come on if we're trailing, I don't see him sparking the magic that we're going to need, that Faf maybe will provide. And we all know Elton Jantjies. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about him. I don't think he's international quality at this stage. So again, it's all going to come down whether we're leading in the end or whether we're going to chase the game. I think if we're leading and we bring them on, we might still just sneak it in. But if we're trailing and we're going with this bench that we've got now, I think we are going to end up losing this game if if there's not some sort of magic coming on. And then, like you said, we're missing Dwayne Vermeulen. I don't think Kwagga Smith is that answer. I think we've left our best player out of the whole tour, whole squad of this tour, Marcel Coetzee. I know you've seen a lot of him, Stephen. So, yeah, I'm very surprised that he's not there. And then also the likes of Kolisi is not really hit form, but he's probably there for the experience and that leadership that he brings to the side.
Yeah, Coetzee, that was one of the main reasons Coetzee went back, wasn't it? I think he was making a big push for the Lions. And yeah, he's fantastic. He's an incredible player.
Definitely. And I see LB de Saffa also says Elkstad is the only weakness that he sees. I don't know if he saw the backline bench for us. But Balls of Fuss says, so we're in agreement, Boks by 10.
Right. It's very possible, yeah.
Well, I can't remember that we did give our predictions yet, but we'll get to that in a bit. We're probably going to end the show in a little bit, but we're going to go through a few more. Cup says, I think Gatlin is trying to bomb squad the Boks. What do you guys think of that? Do you think your bends are stronger than your starting lineup?
I think the front row replacements, I would say we've got a stronger starting. I would have almost liked to have seen it be a complete inverse. I am slightly worried when these. The thing for me with the front row replacements especially is Sutherland, Owens in particular. They haven't had the tournaments. I don't think either of them would have massively wanted. They haven't stood out that much. They haven't done anything particularly special. They've just sort of come on and got the job done, and then that's been their games for me so far. Whereas Wyn Jones has been, in the breakdowns, he's got turnovers, he's doing really well. Luke Cowan-Dickey's carrying the ball brilliantly. The 5-meter tap and goes, he's done awesomely. The presence around the pitch has been awesome. And Tyke Furlong with handling, sidestepping, for a man who's about 19 stone, he's got a good little tap dance on him. They've all got something that's a bit of a shining spark about them. And I wouldn't be surprised to see they're going to be the strongest set in that front row. And then these lads will come on and just try and hold that scrum. And just hope it works well for them. I don't necessarily think that their worst scrummagers going to be coming on. I think Kyle Sinclair especially is very good at the scrummaging. It's one of the stronger areas of his game. But to me, I personally would have liked to have seen the Cowan-Dickey and Ken Owens swap. And that way you could have had the two solid shining stars in the prop department and then the reliable hooker beginning. And then in the 60 minutes when there's actually room for someone to shine, that's when you have someone like Cowan-Dickey come on. The tap and goes make more sense. The running play from a hooker that is much more viable. I don't really see Luke Cowan-Dickey having much of an impact against a fresh-faced South African team as much as you would do against like the Stormers. We saw how good he was against the Stormers. If people are weakened and slowing down, he really shines. And I don't think we'll get to see that till very late in the game, and he'll probably be taken off by that point. Byrne and Watson, I think, fabulous replacements. I think Watson brings pretty much the same skill set as Curry in terms of ball carrying and jackling and breakdown technique. I think they're almost interchangeable. They have two slightly different styles, but that'll work perfectly well. Whether they keep them both on at the same time or do a direct replacement. Byrne plays everywhere. I talk very highly of Tyke Byrne. He's been phenomenal in every department, 4, 5, and 6. There's very few players who can say you can play three positions equally well. Conor Murray, I think, is just to settle the ship down. Liam Williams is coverage, I would say, more than anything. It will be if South Africa tend to kick far more than the Lions are expecting, and Stuart Hull can't make ground with the counter attacks. If he's had too much pressure, Liam Williams for me is much better under the high ball. That'll be the replacement there. If Duhan van der Merwe isn't coping with Colby, that's where Liam Williams will come on instead, just to try and switch it up. I think that's a coverage move. Owen Farrell, I'm not really sure about. I imagine that's just a replacement fly half if Bigger goes off. I know he'll probably come on at 12 at some point, whether Daly goes off or Henshaw goes off for that. I don't think Henshaw's had the game time necessarily to stay on the full game, so Farrell might come on there. But again, we haven't really seen a lot of link-ups between Bigger and Farrell, so I think the back three for me, again, I almost think maybe it's the same as the South African, that I'm actually sort of okay with the front rows, and that back three for me is where it might begin to dwindle. I think they're in there more for coverage for injuries and people that need to come off, and if people aren't handling the game well enough, rather than I've picked these players so that they can make a huge impact once they come on the field for me.
Yeah, the front row, I have no problem. I think it was always going to be some variation in kind of those players. Sinclair is fantastic. Sinclair is just unfortunate that Tyke Furlong exists, or he'd be starting tight head for the Lions. He is that good, and again, he was a massive omission of the original squad. Tyke Byrne, yeah, as Morgan's already said, no matter where he comes on, he's going to be. I fully believe he'll be fantastic. Hamish Watson is a fantastic jackal threat when he comes on, and we know how good he is. And how good of a Six Nations he had as well. Murray will be fantastic if the Lions are leading when he comes on. If we're chasing a game and we're bringing Murray on, I don't know how that will go personally. The Conor Murray of old, I'd be fully backing him, but the last couple of years, Conor Murray, possibly not. I'm actually quite high on Owen Farrell, which I never thought I'd hear myself say because I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of him. But Owen Farrell's a big game player. We saw the last Lions tour. If there's a penalty to save my life, I kind of want Owen Farrell kicking it. The bigger the moment, the more I feel like he'll rise to it. I know he hasn't been very consistent and he hasn't had a good year form-wise, but I think he just does a lot very well. And again, the flexibility of the 10 and 12 channel, I can see why he's on the bench. And if the game's tight with 10 minutes to go, I'm fully confident that he'll come on and do a good job. Liam Williams could have started this and no one would have really batted an eyelid on that team. Like Stuart Hogg again hasn't had the most consistent kind of year, and Liam Williams is just as reliable as they come. And under the high ball, he's fantastic as well. So look, I'm a bit higher probably on the back three with Conor Murray, depending on the situation, obviously. Then maybe Morgan might be, but again, it's a Lions team. You're never going to have really poor players coming off.
Yeah. LB the Suffer says Bok pack looks more mobile than a Lions pack. This is not something that we would have thought at the start of this Lions tour. What do you guys make of a smaller Bok pack of forwards than the Lions to start this game off?
Define the word small.
Okay, lighter than the Lions then.
yeah. Sorry, Morgan, go ahead.
Well, I was generally surprised this was a thing. Someone put down in a comment in one of my videos today saying that I broke down the stats and the weights and stuff, and I was really surprised to find out that the Lions scrum is heavier. I really didn't have that down as a thing just on visuals and looking though. I know that I've gone through the stats or anything myself to find this out. The South Africa team has evolved. It may not be true, but the stereotype up here in the UK for me at least has been, when you think about Southern Hemisphere teams, bar maybe New Zealand, you just think of these enormous players that have just come in and smashed their way through you. And I think it's nice to see that there are players coming in who are much more based around, they have real talent as well. People like Colby is almost like an old era of winger. The short sidestepping dancing winger reminds me of Shane Williams. In a Wales shirt. It's nice to see that they can have, smaller players who are able to shift around the pitch more than necessarily needing to go through the front row. But the way the game has gone now, it doesn't even matter that they're lighter really, because muscle and power in the South African team is still so massive. All of them are 6'5", probably starting. It's probably the entry level of what you need to get in a Springboks team in terms of the forwards. And even though they're lighter, you can't take anything away from them. You look at people like Hamish Watson for the Lions. Is also relatively light in terms of his weight, but yet he looks like he's made out of steel. Trying to actually tackle him seems to be impossible. I don't really know who I class as the most mobile out of the two sort of front eight packs. I think that could be for dispute. I've seen Tyke Furlong. He can dance. He can do everything. So I don't know about that one, but it is nice to see that the Springboks have really sort of opened up now into they just have a broad selection of players that all offer a very unique talent and stuff. And they don't need to just have just the big boys for the sake of having big boys anymore. And it's really nice to see for me.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't in the World Cup final, wasn't the England pack much heavier again than the Springbok pack? I think it's been like it's been that for a while. Yeah, thank you, Albi Safa. Look, it's like Mostert is the perfect example of this. Like I've seen Mostert, and like he's not exactly like like shredded city. He's just a violent human being, and that's what all these South African pack are. They're just. There's been physical and then there's been South African physical, and there's a different level to it. And they're they're like even Faf. Remember Faf de Klerk in the South Africa A game, literally using his own body as a missile. Like that is the mentality that Rassie brings to this team. So weight doesn't necessarily make that much of a difference when it comes to that level. I will push back in the sense that I think the Lions pack is quite mobile too. Like bar Courtney Laws, maybe to a degree, but Tom Curry and Jack Conan are more than capable of being mobile. Maro Itoje is an incredible athlete, and as you said, Tyke Furlong, there's no more mobile men in the world than Tyke Furlong. So I wouldn't. If I'm a South African fan, I'm not worried about the weight. Let's just say that.
Yeah, one thing that might come into play is the fact that there's not going to be any crowds this time round. How big of an influence do you guys think that is going to have on this Lions team? And even on the Springboks, for all that matter, because we've seen the Barney Army coming along to support the Lions, and then we all know how vocal the South African fans can be. How big of an influence will it have on both teams?
I think the whole no crowds thing. I mean, all of these lads will be used to playing in front of no crowds now. Or especially from a Lions side of point anyway. I know a lot of the South African lads also play in France and so on, so they're sort of distributed around a little bit more. But from the Lions perspective, they've done a whole Six Nations now of no one in front. I mean, if you go back, 10, 15 years, these lads were playing under 16s in front of their parents. They don't need to have crowds for them to necessarily play well. I think it will play more into the hands of the Lions just by not having 70,000 people backing the opposition is a nice boost for you. You get quiet during kicks. You don't have anyone chanting, screaming. You don't have everyone, helping drive that team forward. I think you actually probably get to see a better class of rugby when there is no crowds because there's less pressure on both teams. It ends up being you just play the game plan you brought in and how you play. I think it will work slightly more in the Lions' favour. But I think if you're involved in either of these two teams, if you said I'm not really comfortable playing this game without a crowd, I don't think you're in the team. So I won't think it make too much of an impact on them particularly.
Yeah, I think if there is any advantage at all, I agree it's to the Lions, just because you're in away territory, you're in hostile territory. Without the fans, it's not as maybe hostile, especially for the first time Lions. I'm not saying that Tom Curry or Jack Conan would let the nerves get to them, but the chances are of being even more nervous when there's 70,000 people rooting against you probably would be a little bit more nerve-wracking. So I think these players, as you said, Morgan, well used to it at this stage, but I would rather be, if I was having no crowds, I'd rather have it away from home than being at home personally.
Yeah. Next one, 11J said, thoughts on Rassie being the water boy for the Boks. Apparently the referee has been asked to monitor him. Nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. What do you guys think of it? And what do you guys think overall of... I kind of feel sorry for Jacques Nienaber because everybody's referring to Rassie Erasmus Springboks, and he's actually not even the coach. So what do you guys think of this whole water boy thing, and with Rassie being still called the coach of the Springbok side?
Yeah, well, it happens in rugby. Everyone will get on somewhere. I mean, the big one I remember was just after Richie McCaw retired, and we all had a big sigh of relief that no longer do we have to deal with Richie McCaw. And then in the next New Zealand game, he was on as a water boy. And you're like, well, these teams, they always find a way. They'll always find a way to get messages. It won't impact the other team. The teams themselves won't matter too much. Should you be allowed to? That's a different thing. I think it's some of the fun in the sport of being able to get away with stuff like this. I remember there being a call a couple of years back about that during a game, coaches shouldn't be allowed to have messages sent on to players and stuff. And then you see them all there with the microphones. They're all talking. Everyone does it. It happens in every game. Doesn't matter whether you're bringing water on or whether you're sat in the box with the rest of them on a microphone. It won't impact the other team too much. It'll help your team massively. But I think it's one of those things that's it's all part of the fun of the game, in it, that teams try and sneak these little pet things past referees and so on.
Yeah, I think Rassie's like the ultimate micromanager, isn't he? Like everything has to go through Rassie, but it's worked so far. I have no problem with it either. As Morgan said, just because he's not on the pitch doesn't mean the messages that he's putting across isn't getting to the players. They're just getting there maybe a couple of seconds earlier. But what's the difference of him delivering it personally or him radioing down to the water boy to then go on and deliver it? It's not stopping it. So it just looks funny in itself. Seeing Rassie running around with the water boy bib on him. I think from now on, every coach, I know he's not the coach, but someone who's involved should always be on the pitch. I think that would be even better. Let's see Warren Gatlin run around in a little bib. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, they probably haven't seen Rassie at his best. There was a time a couple of years ago where he would sit on the roof of the stadium in Bloemfontein, actually calling the shots with little sticks to the players. So if they think that is weird, then they haven't seen nothing. But yeah, overall, what do you guys think of Jacques Nienaber as the Springbok coach? You haven't obviously seen a lot of him. Do you think he will be able to take over what Rassie has built upon the World Cup?
Well, there's certain jobs in the world that you think must be fantastic to be inheriting. One must be the Springboks team, another must be the New Zealand job. The sort of the groundwork is laid for you, and you've just got to build on it. I think Rassie's done an awesome job with where he got that South African team, took them through to a World Cup, and you've celebrated the highest end that you can in rugby. Really, I think he's it's continuing on the good work, but it's also putting your own spin on it. I can't see the damaging in lack of coaching, especially with Rassie still involved slightly. They won't feel the difference too much, and those messages will be passed on. They'll still work strong. You don't want to win a World Cup and say, bye-bye and you're gone forever. You want to be involved with that and keep your own legacy going. So I think he's doing a really good job. I haven't got to see as much of him as I probably would have liked from just TV coverage generally. We watch it on Sky over here, is the only way we watch the Lions. There's very few talks I see from him, and if they are, they're very quick and general chat. So I don't really know a lot about him personally. But he's doing a perfectly sound job. He'll be perfectly happy with how his team's getting on so far.
Yeah, I think they're massive shoes to fill with Rassie, and at the moment, are we even sure he is coaching? Like, it could be just Rassie doing it regardless. Like, it's tough. We won't know until Rassie really removes himself. The only thing I can tell is, like, from watching YouTube videos and documentaries, how the players resonate with Rassie and how much that he motivates them. So whenever you eventually do remove him from the situation, it'll be interesting to see how they get on, because obviously you have an incredible collection of players. But will they have the same, as we've already said, like the same like violent physicality if Rassie isn't the manager and getting them psyched up for these games? We don't. They very well could be, and they could make strides. We won't know until Rassie's really gone out of the picture. Yeah. So it's a great team to take over, but they're big shoes to fill.
Definitely. So one thing that we haven't talked about today is that we're going to have a South African TMO on Saturday. Nice and sleazy said it here, and with modern communication, does the TMO even have to be in South Africa? What do you guys make of that, having a South African TMO? I know Gatlin went on about it, he raved about it quite a bit. You guys' opinion on that?
It's of course it's a media thing to suddenly get involved and say, if we lose, it's because of this. That will happen, as it is in most games. Eddie Jones is the king of media coverage of, if we lose a game, it's because of this thing, not because we got beaten, sort of thing. I actually think it almost works a little bit more in the Lions' favor potentially. That if you are of the same nationality of your refereeing, you are scrutinized much heavier than any other referees involved. So I actually think they'll probably do a more stand-up job rather than necessarily like a biased job. We've seen it before. I think Wayne Barnes has been out there refereeing some of the Lions games so far and so on, and he looks to referee them fairly. I went and saw Wales versus the Barbarians with Nigel Owens refereeing that game. They're there. They are there to do a job. You'd like to think they'll be professional and biased, but I think if you're in the TMO, especially, you aren't on your own in a room. There's 6 of you, sat round. Everyone's giving you different pictures from different places and stuff. I think if you see a clear foul and you say that's not a foul, and 8 people around you go, yes, it is. Words might be had with you, but I don't think it'll impact the game too much. Obviously, you just hope for his sake, probably, that there won't be a huge controversy try or something that goes one way or the other. But I don't think it'll impact it enormously.
No, to answer the question, no, of course, the TMO doesn't have to be like with technology, he could be anywhere in the world and he could do the TMO job, I'm sure. Though I think Gatlin is playing pure mind games with this. I just think he's putting pressure on that TMO by making such a, I think that's purely what he's doing. He's just putting pressure on him now that if there is a 50-50 call, the TMO is going to be like, oh, there's quite a bit of media circus around me here. And if there is any biases, which I'm not saying there is, and like Morgan, I would hope that in the game that we all love, that they would respect, the spirit of the game and they would call it as it is. I just think it's pure. I think if it was the other way around, I'm sure Rassie wouldn't be too quiet about it either. So I think it's purely mind games.
No, definitely. So Kenneth Isaac says Lions' physicality will be tested. We all know, and I don't like it, we do get a lot of red cards these days for the smallest of stuff. I mean, in the old days, it would have gone unnoticed. It wouldn't even have been a penalty. But these days, you get a red card left and right. So with this game being as physical as it is, and you've got the likes of your Etzebets, and we even see Faf de Klerk now going in with a shoulder these days. So we've always tipped, from a South African point of view, we've always tipped Owen Farrell to be red carded in this Lions tour. So do you guys think any of these guys maybe hold a threat of getting yellow carded or red carded and just blowing this game wide open during a game where it could have been tight?
I mean, I don't think Owen Farrell's ever been red carded. I think I've called for a few during a Wales-England match before, but I don't think it ever comes.
Same here.
I think card scenarios, it's going to be a physical game. I think on the basis of the teams going in, I think Gatlin's probably done a good enough job at removing players that will potentially get those sanctions. That there's a lot of quite honest players in the Lions team. I would say more likely for things like yellow cards would probably come from a South African standpoint. They're a much more physical side. They're much more willing to get involved. The height of them anyway. It's one of the annoying things in rugby, having a 6'8" man tackle a 5'2" guy, and you think that you can do nothing but do a high tackle. You don't know what you can do. I think they'll be quite hesitant with cards. As we've already sort of seen a little bit, there was a couple of the Lions warm-up tests where the Lions had a good 6 or 7 penalties in their own 10-meter channel, and they and there was no card shown. And I was thinking there should be a card probably around here. I think when it comes around to the actual test, they'll probably be fair. I wouldn't be surprised if they're slightly more lenient towards not giving cards if it could be helped. Just because these are the sorts of games. As soon as if you get a red card in this sort of game, it can be a game-ending thing, and it can really snowball into something. South Africa did really well to have 2 men sent off, and they only concede 7 during having the 13-man period, I think, in that South Africa A game. They're looking really good in terms of managing to hold with less players. But yeah, I think they'll scrutinize everything just a little bit more, just to make sure if a card is going to be shown, it is warranted. And I'm sure verbal warnings for multiple infringements leading to a yellow card will be delivered to captains very verbally. The next one is a yellow card. Make sure everybody's aware so that it can't be pinned on a ref for changing a game or something. Like, everyone will have to be informed for me.
Look, my thoughts on the red cards and whatnot. Look, my biggest issue is the lack of consistency with calls. We've seen that throughout the leagues and the international games. And this, like, they throw around there's no mitigation when sometimes there's clearly mitigation. I don't know if you guys watched the Australia-France game with Corin Bette's red card, and the France player clearly dips a little bit. And I'm not saying it wasn't dangerous, but for the referee, well, that too as well, yeah. But for the referee to say that there was no mitigation, it's just false. You know what I mean? Like, and look, if you slow anything down to 1/100th speed, it's going to look worse than in real time. And it was good to see that Corin Bette's red card got rescinded, but. As a Lions fan, you're just sort of in fear now. And look, as I said, as a Connacht fan and a Bundy Aki fan, part of me is almost glad that he's not playing because, he has gotten a few red cards, which, debatable or not, he's gotten them in his career, and people now hold it against him. And we've seen that so many times. Players will get labelled as these red card machines. And as you said, Johan, 5 years ago, none of them might not have been penalties. And it's a label that sticks with players, and it's unfair. And all we want as fans is if you're going to call that Corin Betty a red card, they all need to be red cards like that. You need consistency, or else you're opening yourself up to criticism.
No, definitely. Right, guys, so we're coming closer to the end of tonight's show. You guys can let me know in the comment section what you guys' score prediction will be. I'm going to go with my initial score prediction of South Africa by 29 points to 19. What are you guys' predictions for tomorrow's game?
See, now all along through this, I've said about how I think this will be a South Africa win for this first test. But the more we've talked about this Lions team, I'm almost tempted to switch it now, which is terrible, isn't it? You can't be. What did I say, Roger? I think I thought it was going to open up this game a little bit more. I think they've loaded the backs a bit more, so I think there'll be more scores. I think people will be more desperate for points and stuff. I think I said something like 30 points to 25 to South Africa. I think is what I've called. I'll stick with my guns, even though I'm beginning now to flip in my own head. But I'll stick with it for now.
I'm going to go with the Lions. Look, if ever there was a year that they're going to beat South Africa, the Lions, this is the year. South Africa have not had a good preparation. The whole tour has been a nightmare in terms of COVID, and especially South Africa more so than the Lions. The fact he's gone with the attacking thing, I'm happy with the attacking mindset. I'm going to go 21-17 Lions. Nice and tight.
That's a good one. Yeah, no, we had last night one of the South Africans actually turning against the Springboks last night and saying that they're going to lose the opening game, I think, by 5 points. So, yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see. And, that is all we got time for tonight, guys. Thank you for joining us on the show. Morgan and also Stephen. It was a really nice chat, and hopefully we can do something like this in the future again. But thank you for tuning in, and we'll chat again. Thank you all for tuning in tonight as well. You guys have been brilliant. Until next time, cheers for now.
Cheers, guys.